It's a wonderful privilege to be working in Bible translation. So many friends over so many years, and many of whom I've met again after a long time here. So, as I mentioned this morning, I first had the privilege of being in the Holy Land in 1993, which is just the time when the Home for Bible Translators was in the process of being born, and it was wonderful to see Miria's vision and Helva and the way everything worked out. And by the way, I took a course then at the Institute for Holy Land Studies, which Helva was teaching, and that was my first-hand taste of the value that it is for all people involved in Bible translation to have time in the land of the Bible. Well, at that time, the vision for the Home for Bible Translators was just developing. And as I prepared this paper, I realized what a very strategic time that was in the history of Bible translation. There were a lot of very significant changes happening during the second part or the later part of the 20th century. And I'd like to focus on 6 different movements or issues that were happening during that time, all of which relate, in all of which the Home for Bible Translators, one way or another, was making a very significant contribution. The first one, the mother tongue translator movement. In earlier years, Wycliffe Bible Translators, other organizations, much translation was being done with the leadership of expatriates who went into an area, learnt the language, analyzed the language, developed the orthography, and then worked, of course, with speakers of the language. But in the later part of the last century, there was a major change happening. Increasingly, there were translators who were translating into their own language, who were coming from backgrounds where they had education, exposure, training, that they could be the primary responsible translators. And now, of course, this new generation of translators already speak their own language. But their challenge is in understanding the text that they're translating. This has been said before, and I just want to affirm it. A text from a very different cultural world from their own. Many translations being done were using other major language translations, usually English or French, as the source text, and were blessed with many good translations in English. But the value of understanding the original language becomes increasingly patent, especially when you have people from a very different background doing the translation. Often you will find linguistic features of their own languages are more similar to Hebrew or English or Greek than they are to English. Even the same thing with the cultural background is more similar. So there is huge value in their studying the original language. And of course, even if they do not reach the point of having the level of ability that he or she can translate directly from the original language, the ability to evaluate translations by comparison with the original text is invaluable. You may see English translate, this one says that, this one says that, go back to the original. What is the evidence one way or another? Another significant factor is the increase in the number of Old Testament translation projects. In the last 20 years, there's been a huge increase in the number of Old Testament projects in progress. This was for a number of reasons. With the advent of more mother tongue translators, translations were being completed more quickly, and there was a cry from the receptors. They received the New Testament. Where is the rest of the Bible? They want the Hebrew Bible, they want the Old Testament too. And in Nigeria, this is become the normal thing. People expect to go right on, and of course, in many situations also they're starting with some of the Hebrew Bible first, and then going on to the New Testament. So with the involvement of speakers of the language, New Testament's being completed in less time, and having tasted the New Testament, the cry from the receptor groups and the desire of the translators is to go on and complete the whole Bible. To just picture a little bit the huge problem that there is, most of the examples I'm giving are from Africa, and particularly from Nigeria, which is my primary area of experience, but they apply in many other parts of Africa and of the world too. Nigeria has more than 500 languages. Uche mentioned, I think it was 532 is the official latest figure. And we have so far 75 published New Testaments, 22 completed Bibles, not very much. Of 23, mentioned that 4 full, it's sometimes hard to keep your figures up to date, 4 full Bibles have been published within the last 6 months, one of which is the Abolo Bible, in which Uche was the primary. So the work is in progress. But in Nigeria now, there are 25 Old Testament projects currently in progress, and more in the pipeline. So there's a lot happening. This has implications. As I said, the same pattern is happening around Africa. And as Halva mentioned, to date, 72 of the approximately 500 Old Testament projects presently in progress have been impacted by the training given in the Home for Bible Translators areas. That is a phenomenal, I don't know whether Halva and Miria sometimes realize the extent of their influence of the program here. And I hope to give some more examples of that. Of course, one of the implications of this is that there are more translation consultants needed. Translation consultants are responsible for helping to train the translators and also to work with them on checking translations. A consultant never says this is right or that is right, but he can raise questions to the translators. Did you consider this? Try and raise the issues that they need to think through in order to get truly an accurate translation, one that's faithful to the original. So with increase in translation projects in general, and especially in Old Testament projects, more translation consultants are very much needed. Consultants in training, one of my major issues at the moment is working with trainee consultants. And in Nigeria, we currently have 24 translation consultants in training. Some of these you will recognize, I think. Babayo Madi was here last year in the brown shirt at the top. Ishaku Kubgak is here with us now. Yes. And Daniel Gya. Some of you may remember Daniel. He went on last year after completing the 6 months program here to the Free University in Amsterdam to complete their MA program, and has been offered a position there, a place to finish his PhD there. And he is going to be one of the leading academic translation consultants in the future. I'm just so thankful that we have people like Ishaku. Uche, I'm not putting in that category because he is already way up training everybody else. But people coming along, John Momo there, people coming along, and we're just thankful that God is calling people like this and training them, and Home for Bible Translators is having a significant part in this training as our little group of Nigerian translation consultants in training last year. And I would love to see every consultant in training have the opportunity of taking training here. The fourth of these significant movements that are happening, the new focus on learning biblical languages. translators need to be able to exegete the original language text correctly, using this knowledge to evaluate the major language translations that they may be using or immediate source text. I greatly appreciated Dr. Aaron Horncall's presentation this morning. That really hit the spot. In order to do good translations, people need to be able to refer back, even if they do not reach the point where they can actually translate them from the original language. And I have to confess that there are not many people who have reached that point. Nevertheless, it's hugely valuable to be able to refer back to the original text and evaluate the sources that you have. Halvor said something I noted down. Knowing the original language throws light on the commentaries. I like that. How are you going to understand the resources? How are you going to evaluate the translations or understand the commentary helps that you have unless you can refer back to the original language? So there is a major movement in the direction of making sure that translators have the opportunity to gain that knowledge. And as we've seen already, Home for Bible Translators is taking a significant part in that. Yes, a good translation expresses the meaning of the original text accurately, clearly, and naturally. That's a standard, basic definition of a good translation. But the worst translation expresses the wrong meaning clearly and naturally. Isn't that true? If your translators are not able to really evaluate, really study the text, get the right meaning in the context, and translate it faithfully, then only bad translations are coming out. We want to make sure that that does not happen. New resources are available. Programs like Paratext, which those of you who have been involved in Bible translation will know about. Software which enables you to look at different versions. This is just a typical translator's screen display on a computer where you can see the original text. You can see, in this case, down below you've got English versions, and in fact, if this were a live view, you would be able to scroll down and see, you can have maybe 10, 11, 12 different versions to look at, including others in related languages, see what they had done. And then up at the top here is the editable screen where this is the draft text, and it makes it so easy to be able to edit and change and make things, move things around. When I started Bible translation in language in the 1960s, we were using typewriters. And if you made a revision, you had to retype everything, and of course in the course of it had the danger of introducing some more errors. But Paratext really is a tremendous help in being able to edit and get a clean copy straight away just like that. And of course also have a lot of notes accessible. Even as we've been mentioning text, particularly, you have quick links to any alternative textual readings. You can look at those very readily, just right there on your screen. So we have been so privileged in these recent years as you pray for translators, but you need to know how to use the tools. And without a knowledge of the original language, any use that you can make of the tools is very limited. But with that knowledge, you have huge resources and can make appropriate use of those tools. A sixth issue, what I'll call a new approach to translation, although it isn't really a new approach, a theory called Relevance Theory, which emphasizes the fact that the knowledge of the historical and cultural context, as well as, of course, as the textual context itself, is essential for understanding. You can say something, and if the context is not clear, it may appear to mean something totally different from what the speaker intended. A translator who spent time in Israel is aware of the geography, flora and fauna, habits of building, farming, and many other activities which help him or her understand the implications of the original text and to communicate the message correctly. This may be both by getting the right implications in the text, also by supplying appropriately supplementary help, such as essential information that the new audience will need to understand the text in a footnote or in the glossary. Not extensive study Bibles, although that would be very nice too, but just the essential information, and most translations these days are including that kind of supplementary information. And of course, a translator who has had exposure, time in the land of the Bible, has become more aware of these issues and will be much more able to pick up the right points quickly from the original text. So 6 areas of development I mentioned: the mother tongue translator movement, huge increase in the number of Old Testament translation projects, need for more translation consultants, new focus on the importance of translators learning the biblical languages, new software resources, and meaning in context, the importance of the cultural and historical context of the text. I think as you look down that list, you can see how the Home for Bible Translators has had positive impact in every one of those 6 areas. Just opening up the opportunity for mother tongue translators to come to Israel, to study here in a purpose-oriented program, and under scholars who are able to really train them very meaningfully. We just praise God for what the Home for Bible Translators has provided through their training program. Just to mention, I don't need to say anything here that's already been explained freely previously. Between 1995 and 2014, 101 students have taken these courses, the main 6-month Hebrew course, representing at least 39 countries and at least 74 languages. By the way, 22 of those are from Africa, 22 countries. So you can see that this has had a huge impact on translation in Africa. Then the shorter course, the Bible background for consultants, which I would hope that every consultant would have the opportunity to come. During the last 20 years, at least 80 consultants have benefited from this, representing at least 10 different organizations. I find that encouraging too. Not only internationally, different countries being represented, but also different organizations cooperating. Bible Society, Wycliffe Bible Translators, SIL, Institute for Bible Translation from Russia, and Lutheran Bible Translators, many others, all working together and all benefiting from the Home for Bible Translators program. Then I just want to mention, I realize I don't have many more minutes, some of the innovative programs, teaching methods that the Home for Bible Translators has been making use of. Teaching Hebrew using an oral participatory approach. I very much again appreciated Dr. Aaron Honko's presentation this morning. And I think especially for students from Africa, learning modern Hebrew and then carrying over the inferences into biblical Hebrew is a huge benefit. People from Africa, because they grow up in a multilingual context, learn by listening and repeating. Is that true? From the West, we tend to learn languages from a book. But if you can learn the language in the sense that you have an integrated, it becomes part intuitive knowledge, that is a huge help. And as that helps you carrying over, especially in the learning of Hebrew, that has been a great help, and I pray that that approach will be reproduced and multiplied many times. I'd like to mention too that for what is being done here in Israel, especially in the area of teaching Hebrew and exegesis, those who've been trained here have gone out and are doing the same thing elsewhere. Here you see Rachel Wenger, who many of you will know, who every year she does a basic Hebrew beginners course using a participatory approach. And that has provided, I think, the basic first stage of Hebrew, which has equipped people to have the background knowledge that they need to come here now to the HBT course. So her inspiration has affected many of the translators as they have discovered the joys of learning Hebrew. And there are others. She's not the only one. In the full version of my paper, I have a list of some of the different programs that are going on, being taught by those who are alumni from the Home for Bible Translators. So training around the world. This is Alina, who some of you may know from Poland. I think here she's working in Ethiopia, and she's been busy both with Hebrew training and also with consulting. And of course, consulting and training others. Here you see Uche with a group of trainees there. And nowadays, in every program, you will see we're early on seeking to identify those who can be trained to train others. And Uche has several people who are his mentees, who he is already training to become consultants likewise. So the Home for Bible Translators story has been one of international partnerships and cooperation, volunteers offering their services, supporters contributing generously from their resources, and the partnership with the Hebrew University through the Rothberg International School has been of inestimable benefit. And we praise God for the cooperation that there's been, for all those who have contributed in different ways. And of course, as we honored Halvor and Mirja this morning for their leadership in all of this, it's been a tremendous blessing. So may God continue to bless the program and indeed expand the vision even further, opening up new developments that will contribute even more to the worldwide program of Bible translation. Thank you.